Hi, I'm Michael Senior. I coordinate the Heads of Sixth Form Conference each year, Senior Press Conference that a lot of delegates attend. This is me presenting in 2015, where I outlined the notes review, having introduced the skills review to a number of centres at the conference several years ago. And this is what I've been working on over the last year. The notes review is something where the students have their notes checked to see that they are making them. I think there's 4 reasons to do this. First of all, I think it helps raise achievement because students that simply read handouts and read textbooks tend not to retain it and understand it as well. With the advent of linear, then it might be that students simply avoid taking notes until later on in the course, and then when they realise they've got too much to make, then they just simply give up, and that's a disaster. Also, in terms of a third reason, in terms of diagnosing who's not able to make notes or not wanting to make notes, this strategy would allow you to pick up on those students and then intervene mid-year to get it right. And then it's also one aspect of leading on learning, which is part of the Ofsted criteria, but it's what are you doing to have an impact on learning as a head of sixth, and this is something that's very achievable to do that. This Bridging the Gap is a resource that I use, so if you want to teach students how to make notes, then this is something I use in tutorial time, which are specifically tailored to sixth formers, and so it outlines how to make notes and it gets them to apply those strategies to a couple of articles that are written. They're all about learning, so it's quite useful from that regard, but there's other stuff out there. The notes review pro forma is on 2 sides. This is an example of side 1. This is simply the spec. So staff would put this in, enter this in. It helps buy-in if staff actually start to manipulate the form and adapt it to their subject. So staff put the spec in, of which the students are supposed to have made notes on. I'm assessing them in January in my centre, so this would be the spec from the autumn term. Here's an example from psychology. Students would rag it, so spec would be there. If they've covered the spec and made detailed notes, then they would tick green. If there's an area completely that they've made no notes on, they'd tick it as red. And if they've made some notes on some of it, but on others they've not, here it is in red that they've not, then they'd tick amber. And so they'd work their way through ragging what they think they've made notes on. Here's a blank version that you'd give staff. This is the assessment pro forma. There's very little for the staff to do. They just simply tick a box. That's all they do. The student puts their name on, and then they either tick that they think their notes are excellent because their notes are selective and they're detailed and they cover the spec, or they can make notes. They're selective, but there's the odd gap, in which case they tick 2. If they find it hard to make notes that are selective, they tick 3, and if they're simply not making any notes at all, they tick 4. This is a student that thinks their notes are pretty good, but the member of staff has ticked a different box. They think actually they find it hard to make notes. The notes are simply copied out from a textbook. They're not very selective, say. And you can see how the form takes them through some resubmission. So there's a date for resubmission, and then the outcome of that resubmission is listed here. And if the students are still in a situation where they cannot make notes, they're not sufficient, then you put them on exam entry review, which means you won't be entering them for their exams until they've passed the notes review. Here's a full version that's not an example that you could give out to staff. Here's the instructions for students. Here's the instructions for staff. Everything is there, so you can download it from the free resources section from the website, Senior Press website. It's all there waiting for you, and you can adapt it. It's in a Word version, so you can feel free to play around with it, put your logo on it and have what have you. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you find that useful, and good luck with that.